Right, I think we are live. A very good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible and clear. I'm Rasini Bandara. Right, okay, let me start over. Hi, a very good evening, everyone. I'm Rasini Bandara, co-convener, Social Activities Subcommittee of Visakha Vidyalaya Old Girls Association. And I would like to welcome all of you for the fourth webinar organized by Social Activities Subcommittee of Visakha Vidyalaya Old Girls Association. Well, it's a very timely topic and a topic that's very close to all our hearts. But I'm not going to take this discussion forward. In order to do that, I would like to welcome a dynamic personality. Well, she is the founder and CEO of Consult Ed, an organization navigating individuals and business towards success. She has served in the capacity of head of school, digital direct marketing, digital fundraising manager, as well as on-air producer. She also produces and hosts storytime videos on YouTube and authors children's books. She also holds a BA in psychology from California State University, Fresno, and an MA in education leadership from West Virginia University, along with a certificate in human resources from Disney University. Well, putting that all aside, she is one very proud Visakhian, one-time head prefect of Visakha Vidyalaya as well. And please welcome the beautiful, gorgeous, and very talented Chirangi Tisera, who's going to wear the moderator's hat for this discussion. A very good evening, Chirangi Ake.
Hello, Rasini. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Ayubowan, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today as we unleash our inner sparkle in the area of positive parenting. Before we begin, let me take this opportunity to thank the committee members of the VVOGA for providing the platform for today's discussion. Also, I would like to recognize Rasini Bandara, Kanchanamala Gikianage, Lakshi Kiribadgala, and the rest of the team of the Social Activities Subcommittee for their efforts in coordinating this event. What makes parenting a challenge is that there is no exact formula that works for everyone and for all situations. Added to the parenting challenges we had pre-pandemic, we all had to adapt to a new way of life during 2020. And as parents, we had our worlds turned upside down by having to work from home while keeping kids occupied since most of the schools were closed. This event will focus on concerns most of parents have and the challenges that we have presently. Our panel for today is comprised of 4 individuals who will offer an unique perspective into parenting. The objective of the discussion is for the panelists to share ideas, knowledge, and personal experiences that you as a parent can use to become the best parent you can be to your child. The panelists may choose to speak in either Sinhala or English, whichever language they deem most impactful to convey their opinions. So let's begin. I came to know our first panelist through her creative and helpful parenting advice videos on social media. She holds a BA in leadership and management and a diploma in business psychology, along with a certification in NLP. Please welcome Anjali Fernando, the co-founder of The Hatch, a preschool and daycare. Maria Montessori pointed out that early childhood is a stage in life where a child's brain is like a sponge that soaks up all the knowledge from its environment. Whether it's a good environment or a bad one mainly is decided by the parent. Anjali, as the owner of a preschool and a mom, you focus on providing a safe environment for children to explore and to be creative. Can you please share your knowledge on how parents can provide an enriching environment at home for their young ones, especially during the pandemic? Anjali?
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear properly. There was a technical issue.
Oh, do you want me to repeat the question, or are you good?
Sorry. Okay. I can't hear what you're saying, but let me just answer the question. No, I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So thank you for that wonderful introduction to Chirangyaki. And first of all, I would like to thank the OGA for giving me this opportunity. And I should say I'm honored to be this panel. So firstly, let me just explain to you what you mean by an enriching environment. I believe an enriching environment is a space that nourishes the child's mind, body, and soul. And it also improves the living experience as well as the positive growth of a child. So this pandemic, when you talk about the pandemic, it has affected every one of us in different levels, in different ways. But I would say the young children are the most affected from this, simply because they are not in an age that they can comprehend as to why suddenly their routines have changed and then why they have to be stuck inside four walls and no outdoor play, no interaction with their friends. It's only their parents and the loved ones who are at home they would see every day. And so because of that, it has had a huge impact emotionally for the young kids. So let me just take you through a few things as to how you can nourish a child in terms of mind, body, and soul. So one of the things due to pandemic, what has happened is the outdoor play has been restricted quite a lot from what it was. So because of that, their cognitive and the social stimulations have drastically dropped. So because of that, they have lost the attention that they were supposed to be getting from their friends to everyone else around them. So because of that, they would there is a how can I say there is a big need for attention. So and that they expect from their parents who are at home. So if you are a working parent, I'm sure it's going to be a big challenge, especially if you have a demanding boss or a demanding job role that really wants to work you 24/7. But having said that, what we really need to do is sit back and really think, why are we doing this job? I'm sure if I ask that question from most of you parents, you all would say it is to be able to give a better life or to cater to the needs of your child. So if that is the answer that you are giving, even in your head right now, I would say we need to make that conscious decision to really make time, to allocate time within the day for your young children who are at home. And when I say the time allocation, when I'm referring to the allocation of time, it doesn't have to be 12 hours or 10 hours, but even 1 or 2 hours, if you can afford to, give your 100% attention and focus and be with them completely, I would say that would be more than enough if you really can do that. So also when you're spending that 1 or 2 hours, what you really need to do is in that time, try and give them new experiences and explore things with them together, which will really stimulate their brains. For example, maybe you can paint a picture with your child, or go out to the garden and observe the birds and the trees and identify different types of leaves and flowers around, and or maybe try and create a story together where you say a part of it, and you encourage your child to continue and imagine and say it, the second part of it. So like that, when you do these things, it really stimulates their brain cells and it really activates their creative side. So that really nourishes their brain. So secondly, another thing what has taken place because of these restrictions of going outdoors and all that is what I believe is the energy that the child has been it has they haven't had the chance to use the energy they have. All our kids are energy balls. If they don't get to spend it some way or the other, they they will burst out in that energy. So the way they sometimes would burst out is through tantrums or disorderly conduct, you as you may see. But actually what they're trying to do is all the energy that they have, because they can't put it out, they're just trying to get it out of themselves. So we as parents should learn to not really react, but understand that, and then understand that, and then really help them get through that. How can you help with that is what I believe is, maybe as a parent, if you work out daily, maybe engage them in your daily workouts. For them, it won't be a workout, but it will be a physical playtime which they would really enjoy. So, and this is one way that you can nourish your body, help your child to nourish your body. And the other is obviously the food. But especially when you're stuck at home, I would say always have healthy options for meals and snacks as well. Don't get them used to having fast food or all that, because it brings in a lot of negative effects afterwards. So that's these are some of the ways where you can help your child to nourish your body. So the third thing is how you can nourish the soul of your child. What truly believe is how you can nourish the soul of your child is by helping them spiritually grow. If going to a temple is not an option nowadays, it doesn't mean you need to pause their spiritual exposure because of that. Rather, you create that environment at home. I'm not saying to create a temple inside your house, but what I meant is, follow that rituals, religious rituals and the practices. And also sometimes maybe if the child is very young, maybe you can read Jataka Katha instead of a fairy tale, and explain how it explains the life of Lord Buddha. And also, if you're from a different faith, you can go on to do something like explaining the life of Jesus, and also explain simple concepts like being kind and being loving to others, because these things, these moral values really help them when they grow up. So these are some of the things what I believe would really help to nourish their mind, body, and soul. So by doing that, what eventually what you're doing is you're creating a space to really, you're converting the home to a space that is an enriching environment. So I hope I answered your question, Aki.
Those were some good ideas, Anjali. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I'm happy to mention the next panelist is a batchmate of mine from school. Her impressive list of achievements includes an MSc and MD in community medicine, along with a graduate certificate in educational studies and medicine in inclusive and special education. She serves as a consultant community physician, national program manager in childcare development and special needs at the Family Health Bureau, Ministry of Health, Sri Lanka. And she is a mother of two. Please welcome Dr. Asiri Heva Malage, MBBS. One of the most debated areas in parenting is how to discipline a child. Dr. Asiri, what is your professional opinion about discipline for a child, and what is the science behind positive behavior support from early childhood to adulthood?
Yeah, thank you, Shirangi, for that wonderful introduction. And I think you asked a very big question in a very debated area, which I think we can discuss for a day. But let me try to be as brief as much as possible. So, when it comes to discipline, so what does discipline mean? What does the word discipline mean? So, I think it comes from the Latin word disciplina, and it means to teach. To teach is to show and explain how to do something. But I think historically we have got this thing wrong because most of our definitions of discipline is comes with the word punishment, because even Oxford defines discipline as the practice of training people to obey rules and orders and punish them if they do not. So, but I think discipline and punishment are two different things that do not go hand in hand, because simply because one doesn't need punish to teach. Okay, so if a child does not know to walk, we teach them, and if a child does not know how to swim, we teach them, and if a child does not know how to write, we teach them. But if a child does not know how to behave, we go ahead and punish them. So, how justifiable is that? You have to think as parents. So, we have to discipline a child. There's no argument about that. That's a duty of the parents. But you can discipline a child without punishing them. So, discipline involves teaching and training the future desired behaviors, whereas punishment inflicts suffering for the past behaviors. And also discipline helps the thinking brain to learn, because as human, even our babies, we have the capacity to think. We have a cortex, brain cortex, which the other animals does not have, which has the capacity to think. And discipline helps to for the thinking brain. But what punishment does, it causes the emotional brain to fear and develop mental and emotional issues. So, by punishing, we are touching one part of the brain, and by doing proper discipline, we are touching the higher brain, higher executive functions of the brain. So, I think as parents, you have to realize what we have to do, whether it is punishment or whether it is discipline. And then, so how do we discipline a child without punishing? So, that would be a very big question to all of you, because I think we all are trained to punish children in order to discipline them, because punishment brings out quick action, quick reactions, and you can immediately stop a certain undesired behavior through punishment, and we think it works. But in long run, it doesn't. So how do we discipline a child in the long run, and how are we going to do that? So the first thing as parents you have to do is you have to be a role model. That's the simplest way you have to discipline a child, because humans have the unique ability to learn by observing and imitating others. It is unique to the human, and babies do this from day one. Babies do this from day one. So I think all of you have realized that for a child to crawl and to walk, we don't have to go ahead and teach them, but they observe us. The adults, they learn that from day one itself. They start to learn. So as parents, your behavior is learned by your kids. So if you want your child to be respectful, that is your desired behavior, you respect your child. If you want your child to be kind, you have to be kind to your child. And if you want your child to not to hit anybody, don't hit your child. And if you don't want your child to be cruel to others, you don't be cruel to your child. And the second thing is you can use positive behavior support technique. So this is also something I think which is sort of new to us, because we are, as parents, we are so much used to catch the negative or the naughty actions of the children. So a child, so many good things during the day, but they all go unnoticed, but they might do one naughty thing, we go ahead and catch them and we start shouting. So we are so much used to catch the naughty things. But as parents, if we can catch the good behaviors of the children, try and actively catch the good behaviors that do. If a child then child knows that when he or she does something good, they get the mother's attention. The mother comes and loves and praises him. So children naturally like to get the attention of the parents and their praise. So then they keep on doing the good things. But sometimes when you keep on giving attention to the negative things, instead of not doing that, they will keep on doing the negative things. So always try to encourage the positive behavior and praise that. I hope you all can hear me, no?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
And then yeah, then the third thing is you have to be very clear about your household rules. So you have to have a must obey list. So there are certain things that you have to obey. When it comes to safety, health, and those kind of things, there are must do rules. And also always think all the things that you tell your children, whether it is necessary for them to obey for all your demands, because they are also unique individuals and they have their own way of doing things and you have your own way of doing things. Simply because you are a mother, because you are higher in age, that doesn't mean children have to obey you all the time. They can argue, they can question, they can do what they want. So always keep a must do list and always discuss that must do list with your children, so they know your rules, they know what are the household rules, and they know what is the natural consequence that will happen if they do not obey them. So always discuss and agree on the consequences of not doing that also for the must do list, so they know. And also when you want to give some sort of a impact or consequences for a must do rule, if they didn't obey, then the child also know that, and you also doing a proactively, you are putting that sort of the reprimand. It is not a reactive thing. So it's like this, sometimes you come home and everything is messed up and you get very angry and you go and hit the child, and the child must be playing somewhere and she doesn't know why the mother hit me also, she doesn't know. And then what she will think, the child will think, my mother is very mean, she is very angry and she came and hit me. But you hit her thinking that that punishment will correct her behavior, but child is thinking something totally different. So it is reactive things for behaviors to correct behaviors is not working. So always have proactive measures, have your rules, discuss with your children, and everybody coming to the same page of the book. They understand. So, and I have to mention here, contrary to the popular belief, obedience is not a virtue. I personally don't believe in that, because we want a child or a raising a person who has an independent mind, critical thinking skill, confidence in themselves, and not blindly following instructions. Through obedience, we try to create humans who are blindly following instructions, which has happened in our country, and we are having people, adults now, who want instructions for each and everything because they don't have that critical mind. Okay, finally, I would say, if you want to discipline your child, be consistent in enforcing the agreed rules and be consistent. The consistency has to come from both parents. Both parents have to be on the same page and they have to agree with that. So if you use that thing, which I'm using with my kids, and it works, definitely it works. I think it's very easy to discipline your children. Thanks, Chiran.
Wow, Asiri, that was a lot of information that you managed to give us in such a short period of time. I know it was a very intense topic. Would you mind telling us what's included in your list of the must-dos at home?
Yes, must do's. I think respecting others is a must do in my house. Like we have to be respectful. It's not because simply elderly or teacher or something, but as humans, we have to respect the others. And not being cruel to animals is a must do list in my house. And I don't have these daily routines. I'm not very strict, but And also being kind is a must-do thing. Being kind and talking politely is another must-do thing.
That's wonderful. I mean,
Very
you,
few, I suppose.
yes, I think the best advice that you gave was to lead by example. And I think having both parents being on the same page, that's something that we have to try to adhere to as parents. So thank you so much. That was very informative. Our next panelist was reintroduced to me by a mutual friend. I have a vivid memory of this little girl in her little friend's uniform, happily tagging along with Auntie Mangala, who I heard is still a Silvana. And of course, this was many, many moons ago. She has made quite a name for herself since. Among her impressive accomplishments is a BSc honors in chemical engineering, specializing in biomedicine, and a nano degree in AI product management. She is currently serving as general manager supply chain at Atlas Auxilia, Hemas PLC, and is a career mom. Please welcome Dilmini Veragama. Becoming a parent. You're welcome. So
not too long ago, though.
not too long. Not too long. Yes, let's just keep it at that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So becoming a parent means adjusting your life to accommodate your children and their needs. Sometimes you contemplate your ability to manage work and family, leaving you feel drained. Dilmini, as a working parent, how do you stay motivated to be a parent and a career woman? And what are some recommendations you have for other working parents?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded question, so let me take it chunk by chunk. First of all, I'd really like to say what my life is to start with. So yes, I do work in a very predominantly male-dominant field, which comes with its own challenges, right? May it be late nights, travel, dealing with lorry drivers to suppliers to men who get on your nerves and really use every ounce of your patience before you even get home to deal with your kids. So it's not a field that is easy by any means, but no field is. It has its own uniqueness. On a personal front, I am very blessed. I acquired 2 boys through marriage. I have 2 girls. So in our family, we have 4 kids ranging from 5 to 25. So it's an amazing life to be a part of. I am also very blessed to have Auntie Mangala, grandparents who are, who dote over our kids. So the support system that you have to fall back on is really the reason that genuinely I can be a mother. Even the daycares that are open, hats off to them. So I'm going to take your question in 2 fronts, Aki. One is basically to say, how do I stay motivated really to balance both and continue? Let me take it in saying the key to be motivated is to try and be guilt-free. And it really boils down to who you are internally, right? And in the offset, I want to say mad respect for all the mothers who've chosen to be stay-at-home moms. And I think there are many, many instances where it's a much harder job to be a stay-at-home mom. So hats off to you. And to all us working mothers, I think we will find some method of bringing guilt into our life, right? And that happens. So the trick is in saying, how do you internally understand that this is a lifestyle that you've chosen for yourself? It is something that you have to be at peace with so that your children are at peace with it. They smell it, just like they smell fear, they smell guilt, right? So the moment you portray it, it gets much worse for them as well. And 3 reasons that I genuinely feel that my decision in life is okay for me. One, I believe I don't view work as work. I believe that all of us have a purpose in making life better for each other and making the world a better place. And in that journey, I believe that it makes me a better person. And hence the influence I have on my kids, in my perspective, is better. Second, when a person has multiple roles to juggle, they are forced to be much more effective and impactful in what they do. you also savor every single moment and every ounce of time that you have with your kids. So you make the most of it. And I think these 3 points is what really keep me going on a daily basis to say who I am is my family and what I do is to make that better. Right. And if I can say, again, 3 points as advice or whatever you may call it. Number one is the relationship that you build with your kids. And I must say, Asiriaki, I am so happy after hearing what you said, because now I feel like, wow, I'm not weird. It's okay. I've got this down right. So the relationship that you have with your children, it goes beyond anything else. And I think they need to understand that the unconditional love that you have for them allows them to come to you with anything. And you know what? They're not going to do that if you don't go to them. And so for me, it's about coming back home and saying, oh my gosh, this is what happened to me today. At work, here's what I did. Here's the wrong that I did. Here's the right that I did. Give me feedback. What do you think? And, the 18-year-old gives me really good feedback and gives me very good suggestions of how to deal with situations. But even the 7-year-old, the 5-year-old, it's amazing. Recently, the 5-year-old was saying, Amma, just like you always tell us, go to your team and say, first, figure out what problem you're trying to solve, because you're just talking the whole day at all these meetings. And I was, it was phenomenal for me that such a little kid was able to give me that feedback, right? And what happens with that relationship is that when I am open to feedback and able to say, hey, make me better, it automatically makes them able to take feedback from me and become better. And so I think, key to anything is the relationship and that connection that you have with your kids. The second point that I feel is to be creative in finding time with them. In a phenomenon that's hit me is that there's a difference between us adults and the kids when it comes to having to plan and figure out that time slot to do something in life, right? If you say, I need to exercise, or I need to play a game, or I need to play a match, for us, it's about freeing our calendar. Where do we have like a 1-hour chunk? Wait till I finish my work. Oh, I'm not free today. I'm too tired after work, so let me do it tomorrow. These guys don't think that way, right? For them, in between 2 of your meetings, you take the 10-minute chunk and say, all right, I'm all yours. You keep your phone down and say, we're going to play just one game. You come up with a creative game, play with them. The next 10 minutes, you say, okay, we do jumping jacks, right? Or you go out in the rain if it's raining. But all of this within the time slots that you have in your life. Because for them, if you take those 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes and spend time, with them, undivided attention, they feel like you've spent the whole day with them. And once you get them started, they're okay in really playing on their own afterwards, right? So it works for both parties. And the third point for me really is, when you make time for them, you also need to be absolutely present with them so that you're not too half-hearted. And the third point is a very loaded answer, Aki, which I think I'll get into details later, is to find your own parenting style. No matter what anyone tells you, there is a fine line between theory and practical. There is a fine line between what works for you and what works in what the guru's state works. So for me, it's about you being true to your heart, understanding what works for you and your kids, because it's a journey that the two of you embark on. And it's a journey that the two of you grow together in to become the best versions of yourselves. I hope I answered your question.
That was excellent, Delmini. And that, I think, is great advice as to what to do with strained, I guess, time-wise, you are strained as a career woman, and how to make time and what your time limitations is not necessarily something that your kids understand, and to be there for them when they're able to play and be active with you. One interesting thing that I found in both what you said and Anjali said was to completely be present for your children when you're there. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Of course. I'll give you an example of something that happened just on Friday. So I was in Colombo for some of my meetings and I had 2 hours off. And I thought, you know what, one meeting got canceled. Let me take Nanga out for one of these lunch dates. So I went to daycare and I said, okay, you want to come out with me? Let's just go grab a coffee or whatever. She loves the idea of going for coffee. Not that we really drink coffee. So we chose McDonald's. And, I went in, we got the food. 2 minutes later, I went in to get another drink, and she had shifted all her drinks and food and everything with the placemat and gone under the table. So she has set herself a table under the table. And she thought it was a great picnic. So here I am, I turned around to come back. And the ladies who were seated next to me just came in and said, මේ ඔයාගේ දුව බලන්න අර තියෙන ඔක්කොම කෑම අරගෙන පල්ලෙහාට ගිහිල්ලා මේ ඔයා නේද අම්මා බලන්න කිරිටු වෙනවා ඒ ළමයා බිම ඉඳගෙන, right? And a part of me was like, oh my God, okay, here you go. Judgment criteria coming on. And I went there and I saw the joy in her face. And I thought, you know what? I kept my phone there, everything out. It was on the table. I sat on the floor with her, went under the table. And for the next, 20, 25 minutes, here we are seated on a floor at McDonald's having a picnic. And she was just telling me all sorts of stories. And I was just enjoying watching her, looking her in her eyes, genuinely, right? And for me, that is being present. It doesn't matter if you take them for a McDonald's, give them a burger, and talk to someone else. If you are on a call, if you're answering a message, if you're doing whatever else with yourself, if you're preoccupied in your mind, they're not after the burger. They're after that time of you being silly with them, you being you giving them that pure time where you connect, right? So that's what I believe in saying, be present in the moment and give of yourself.
That's an awesome example, Dilmini. I'm sorry I missed that sight of you at McDonald's under the table. But I think you made it very clear to parents that, you have to set aside what you are or who you are to the outside world as a person in order to be present for your children, kind of come down to their level to identify with them. Thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
So next, we have a person, actually a mutual friend, referred to our next panelist as, and I quote, one of the best human beings I know. She is also the recipient of the George Gregan Epilepsy Fellowship Award. She was trained at the Children's Hospital at Westmead, Australia. She established the ketogenic diet and the visual rehabilitation in Sri Lanka. She is also the National Task Force member for community-based rehabilitation. She is currently serving as a pediatric neurologist at Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children. And she is also a mother of 3. Please welcome our final panelist, Dr. Piara Ratnayaka, MBBS, MD, FRCP. And I hope I got all of that right, Dr. Piara.
That's more than what I have actually. FRCP has to come out.
Okay, I'm glad that you corrected that. Thank you very much. So while a parent is able to observe when a child is physically ill, like having a cold or a fever, most parents might not notice when their child's mental health is at risk. Dr. Piara, you mentioned a couple of terms used in pediatrics that were interesting. Can you first explain the terms responsive parenting and the golden 1,000 days and how they are relevant to a child's mental well-being, and also guide us through parenting styles that can reduce the mental anguish such as stress in children? I know it's a lot, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to guide us through it.
Let me try. So I think probably primary, like a scientist or a neurologist, and mostly use the lecture style of doing things. I'm going to put on a few slides at the risk of sounding very pedantic when, like, compared to the previous speaker, but let us try that also and see. So,
thank you.
Now first, like I would probably find very hard to live up to, right? So just to, sorry, else sharing the presentation. Sorry, just another technical glitch. Okay, so you talked about few concepts that I'm sort of hurriedly trying to get into the talk today. The first 1,000 days of life. We call this the brain's window of opportunity. So what are the first 1,000 days? When you talk about the 1,000 days, if we actually count, it starts from the day, the first day of conception, and goes on till during pregnancy, neonatal period, or in the first months of life up to 2 years of age. You can hear me, is it? You can hear me?
Yes, can hear me.
Yes.
So, okay, so when we are talking about the first 1,000 days, let me also give another example or another aspect of why these 1,000 days are very important for us. Let's scratch our brains and get back to our zoology lessons and think of evolution. If you think of evolution, you know that evolution is very smart and it has like made us survive. All animals have survived because of evolution. But if you look at these vehicles, right? Now, if you compare this cart that is there, that can be compared to an amoeba in evolution, the unicellular, very primitive organism. If you look at the lorry, that might be the cow, right? Somewhere higher up in evolution, and of course, this supersonic jet is us, right? So that's us at the top of evolution. And we are the latest model in evolution. But if you actually look at us, we are born like a person who can't do anything. And it takes us 2 whole years to come to the time where we can walk and talk and do all the stuff that an adult can do. But if you look at this cow, the calf, what happens? The calf, just born calf, right? Just getting born. And in 45 minutes, the cow is able to do everything that we can do. Right? So it just took the cow 45 minutes, whereas the supersonic model that are human beings, it takes us 2-3 years just to do what the cow is doing. So why is this? I think like what the other speakers have been telling us, this is the chance that evolution has given us, especially us as parents, the chance that they have given us to influence the growth and the neurological growth as well as the growth of the children. So again, this 0 to 1,000 days, the first 2 years of life, you can see how much change there is in our, like the physical structure. But if you look at the brain, you'll be even more surprised. So if you look at the brain, growth of the brain, right? 80% of the brain growth is occurring during the first 2 years of life. And if you look at the brain structure, if you look at the first picture, you can see that that's how our brain starts. And by the time we are born, it has grown up to here. And if you look at the finer structures of the brain, this is what it looks like at 1 month and quite different during 1 month at 2 months of age. By 28 months, it has matured to almost what it looks like in an adult. So we have this window of opportunity, not only the body, but the brain structure is changing, and not only the structure, the all important, what we call the connectivity, the thing that we are trying to influence by the environment is the connectivity of the brain cells. So these are the brain cells that are, I think many of you must be remembering this, forming the connections or the axons and the dendrites of the brain. That's what the newborns look like. And look what has happened by the time we are 2 years, almost like when you are an adult. So that's the window of opportunity that we are talking about. And if you look at the connectivity pathways, right? So there's just a little word about this, because the brain doesn't just form random connection. It forms connections that enable us to form habits, to think, even to be emotionally stable. It has certain pathways. So most of these pathways are also to see, to hear, and all that. Most of these pathways are also peaked by the time, formation is peaked by the time you are 2 years. So that's what we talk about, the 2 years. I think probably some of your whose children are less, bigger than 2 years now must be thinking, my gosh, the time's gone, nothing to be done. That's not true at all, because again, I think probably even in medical, like in school, we were taught that the brain is something where the neurons are not going to grow. It's grown, it's done, and then that's it. But now scientists are finding that that's untrue. And actually the brain can produce new neurons. Even old brains, not only children's brain, can produce new neurons. And even more than that, the all important connections go on. I don't know whether the whole screen is visible, is it, or are we covering the speakers covering some of it, or is it visible? Visible, no? Right. So if you look at this part of years, can you see from 6 years to 14 years? Again, there's a change in these connections. And it is the connections, not only the, like if you look at this picture, they grow. But from 6 years to 14 years, there's a drop in the connection or the refinement. So this is actually even more important than the growth, because that's the time that we are trying to select Which connections are we going to strengthen? Which connections are we going to let go? Right? So all this process is happening inside our brain, and it is influenced by the environment, which is us, basically the child's environment. The main part of the environment, it's not the house, not the toys, or the exotic, whatever the trips that you go on, or the food that you get, like somebody was saying, not the McDonald's burger that you are getting, but it is the parent that forms the environment, most important part of the environment for the child. So again, just one more example of the to sort of allay the fears of the people whose children are bigger than 2 years. So just, this is a racing car driver who's very famous, right? Can you imagine the first day she started driving, right? We think all of us can remember that she also would have been shivering in her whatever seat and not knowing what to do. But by 1 year, she had become a racing car driver as an adult, not as a child. So this rapid growth of connections, forming all this, what we call connectomes in the brain, that is what enabled her to become a rookie driver to this racing driver in 1 year's time. So this is what we call about neuroplasticity. And that is best happening in the first 2 years, but it's going on and on throughout our life. It's happening even in us when we interact with our children. Okay, so the next word you were talking about is responsive parenting. So this is the responsive parenting, is the environment that we're talking about that is making these connections healthy, robust, the brain to grow the way that we want the brain of the children to grow. Right? So again, we were talking about parenting styles. Probably we'll discourage that word a little bit because there is not one parenting style as such. Like if you look at one individual, I might be using a particular named parenting style this morning, and by noon I might have switched. May not be noon. In the next minute, I might have switched to another style. Maybe not a recommended style when my child is annoying me. That keeps happening. We can't stop that happening, right? So just getting this concept is probably what is important. So what is responsive parenting, right? And just a word about saying the effectiveness of under the evidence, but there's a whole lot of evidence that but there is very solid, robust scientific evidence to tell us that there is children and what they become as adults. Have even alleviate the bad effects of the environment. Even a partner that's not like dirty. All adverse environments for the child to grow up, but responsive parenting has been shown to able to overcome all these adverse environments. And what you mean by responsive parenting is that we are talking about mind-minded parenting. That is basically recognizing that our children, like probably all the speakers were talking about it, right? Although they did not give this like the name or name it as a style, this is probably what everybody was talking about. We just recognize that the children are thinking, that they are human beings, that we respect their thoughts and their feelings and what they are doing. And we also teach them in the process of us doing it, and even physically actually talking about them, we teach them to think of their mind. So just to give an example, if your child is playing with a toy and starts crying, rather than just taking the toy out and like maybe giving another one, you might say, okay, darling, I think you are bored with that toy. You have done everything that you want to be. Do you want me to give you another one? Some different action, will you be not bored with that or recognize and doing it? So it's emotion, right? And this is, and also this part of it is that understanding that children inside even your own family is different. They are different at different times of the day, and they are different as individual, and they have different feelings. And we respond to that feeling rather than doing the same thing for like being fair to every child and giving them everything sometimes doesn't work. So you have to supply the child's need, that particular child's need. like ages. Sometimes these needs can keep changing. So for the little child, you're detecting that and facilitating that, the need to explore. And as you go on, peer acceptance, things like sexuality, and even as adult children. An example, if your child is refusing to like wear a particular cloth to dress to work, to school, rather than saying, okay, if you don't want that, I'll give you another one. You can say like, what's the reason? Is there any particular reason? Do you want to go? The child might come out and say that everybody else is wearing pink dresses. I just wanted pink one. So then you might be getting actually a chance to discuss why you don't have to wear a pink one, or if you want to recognize it, that there is a certain other activities, which is actually the main part of responsive parenting, to bust stress as well into this situation, which is another topic, right? So responsive parenting is the main base. This is very difficult when we are stressed, right? So some of the simple things we need to do is make time for fun. So a proper rest, sleep, adequate amount of sleep for ourselves as well as our children is an absolutely important thing to reduce stress in children. Good nutrition. McDonald's is allowed occasionally, right? Good nutrition, which is not junk. It shouldn't become a stress where you stress that nutrition has to go in such a way, such a time. And very important word, this unstructured activity, especially play. Nowadays, I think we have a sort of like a agenda for our children. So they get up in the morning, they go to school, they this practice and that practice, and then comes TV time, then comes study time or whatever, then comes sleep time. Story time and go to sleep, right? So the structured activity is actually quite harmful for the brain. The brain, for if you themselves, they have to even do things like, what am I going to do with my time now? What's the thing I'm going to do now? How am I going to like interact with the other children? That sort of a thing comes if you have unstructured time only. So a responsive parent or a responsible parent will also schedule for unstructured activities as well. So just, I think time is going on, I'll be very quick about the next topic. So go green, exercise in front of the TV, right? And that's quite a harmful activity. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommend that there should be no screen time for toddlers or children who are less than 1 to 2 years. And it goes on to say that like 1 or 2 hours is what we recommend for children. And so screen time, even if it is with you, is not a good thing. You can use it. Now, if you want to have a bath and the child is screaming, there's nothing else for you to do. It's not, you're not going to poison or cause a big, big defect in the child by rules or settings or like that, but try to minimize the screen time and go and exercise or go green outside where there are trees, which science has shown is likely to reduce stress.
Dr. Piara, sorry to interrupt. There's been a little bit of a glitch on the technical side. I can't hear.
Some other bywords are trust. Yeah. Is that better? Can't hear you, is it?
It keeps glitching, but I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are kind of running out of time for this segment. So, if you can, in about 30 seconds, can you offer some last bit of advice on how to reduce stress?
I think probably this is, yes. I think probably this is sort of the last slide that I have anyway. So,
perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So I think probably, the responsive parent, now I think probably the last advice that we might be giving is that the responsive parenting is built on trust. And trust is built on what we call unconditional love, love that is not conditional. So that is the byword of responsive parenting. Recognize that your child is having a mind of the child is having a mind of their own, letting them know that we also are thinking, and building mutual trust with what we call love that is not restricted at all. So that would be what I would say as the parting advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Piara. That was very informative. And I'm glad that considering that my kids are now beyond the 2 years, that I still have an opportunity to parent them in a positive way. And thank you for explaining those terms, which I think most of us were unaware of before this webinar. Now, I think it's time for us to take a quick break. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Bear with us until we get the technicalities sorted out. Maybe you can use this time to reflect.
Maybe, yeah.
අයියලා ඇවිල්ලා. හොඳ නෑ.
ඊට පස්සේ මම
මෙයාට ඕවා හොඳ නෑ.
ඩයබිටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට විශේෂයි. විටමින් කනිජ සහ තන්තු සමගින් නිසි පෝෂණයක් ලබා දෙයි.
මේ තමයි ඔයාට හොඳ දේ.
අඩු ග්ලයිසමික් දර්ශකයක් සහිත සමබර පෝෂණීය ඩයබිටිසෝල්.
සීයා මාරයි.
සීයාගේ පුතත් මාරයි.
And we are back for round two. I'll begin with you, Dr. Piara. In ideal circumstances, the decision to become parents is agreed upon by both the mother and the father. However, once the child is born, caring for the child and household duties can be weighted more on the mother. Dr. Piara, what is your professional opinion on shared responsibility of raising children and the importance of the father's role?
Yeah. Thank you, Shirangi. Again, a very important question, I think. This time I'm probably going to talk without the slides. So again, yes, again, and you can see the video, is it? You can hear me? Shirangi,
Yes,
you can hear me?
you. There's a slight glitch,
Yeah.
but it comes and goes.
Is that better now?
Much better, thank you.
So I think probably what we have to talk about is it is actually a little bit sad that we actually have to be talking about whether father needs to be part of parenting. Mother and father are the only two parents that every child has. And if you go back to science, like Chirangi was saying, like you wanted the scientific background on that. If you go back to science, there's a whole lot of evidence to show when the father is involved in a child's care, there is actually a whole host of what you call benefits to the child, which surprisingly even includes a higher IQ. So they are shown to have better mood, better IQ, better acceptance of themselves, less stress, and come out as better adjusted human beings. So, and not only does the child benefit, the family, the mother and the father also are shown to be benefiting from the father's involvement in childcare. And science and studies have in fact shown that fathers who engage themselves more in childcare have lesser illnesses and they live longer. So there is a significant even expansion in the father's lifespan as well. The mothers are happier, the families tend to stay together. So looking at that, I think probably the more important thing that we are talking about here is, so how do we why are the fathers not getting involved and how do we get them to get involved? So probably one of the main things that makes the fathers not get involved is the expectations of the society, which we mothers echo. We do not think that the father needs to get involved, and we do not promote the father getting involved. Sometimes we even criticize the way that the father gets involved with the parenting, making the father go away. And then the father also finds it easier not to get involved because this is something that is alien to them. They have not thought that they need to get involved. So this sort of a lot of things are interacting to make the father reluctant to get involved. So how to overcome this is actually to realize that father's parenting has a unique style that helps the children become even sometimes better at managing their own stress and even things like their emotions, and to encourage from the word go, from the time that there is a baby, the baby is born, for the father to get involved. And in fact, some research has shown that in countries where there is paternity leave, where the father is given paternity leave, the amount of involvement that the father has with the child and the outcome has shown to be drastically improved by just giving 2 weeks of paternity leave. And again, for those who do not have a father in the scene, again, don't panic. Because like we were talking about earlier, the responsive parent by the available parent, if the only available parent is the mother, research again has shown that there is no difference between mother doing the parenting again alone or the father and mother getting involved together. It is when both of them are present and one is not getting involved that the child feels maybe even rejected by the father, wondering why the father is not getting involved in the parenting. So I think probably does that answer your question, Chirangi?
It does, Dr. Piara. I missed the last bit of it. If you don't mind repeating that last bit of information that you gave, because there was a technical disruption.
Okay, so I think probably the last bit was very important. Like in the mothers whose children are more than 2 years old, there may be mothers who are the only person who's on the scene with the child. So again, what research has shown is that if mother and father are both present and the father has a hands-off approach, then the child's growth is like the child's the parenting that the child's received and the growth therein of the brain and the emotions is impaired by the father not joining in. But when the father is not at all present in the scene, there is no father or no, there is no contact with the father or there is no father, then there doesn't seem to be a problem if as long as the mother is a responsive parent. So the bottom line is, if both the parents are there, the science backs up the theory. There is no reason if there are two of you, just why one of you should be doing it. But if there is only one of you, it's quite good enough for the one of you to do a good job as well.
So that was an excellent point, Dr. Piara. I appreciate you bringing it out that, single parenting is a challenge, and most people, I think, wonder the effects that it has on children about that missing figure. But the fact that if you have both figures present, a mother and a father, and only one is actively getting involved in raising, so it does lead to the question where children are wondering why that other person is kind of silent and not getting involved. Can you give us some tips where the fathers can get involved or the mothers can get the fathers involved in?
Yeah. So I think, again, this is like, in a way, part of the positive parenting. When you are interactions with the father, I think probably the mothers who are listening in, so we also have to be very positive to children, that they don't have to do parenting, that they don't have to get involved with the parenting, that they can have a hands off sort of a role. So they are learning something new. So they have to be guided through this. They have to be praised. They have to be given opportunity, and we have to be very patient. And sometimes, time might be a problem, and we might have to make time. So again, if the mother is sort of making demands that there are such and such things supplied or whatever, the father might be even tiring himself of doing that. So what we can recognize it here again is that quality time from the father to the mother and to the child is the most important thing in getting the family happy and going, and make opportunities for that as well. And we don't have to always supervise, like what you call helicopter parenting. We don't have to be a helicopter sort of a partner to the parent, looking and saying, okay, you haven't given the child enough food, you haven't done this for the child, you haven't done that for the child. Fathers have a different way of parenting, from which also the children benefit. So let them go ahead with that. Praise them. Let them have some time to do that, and they will, I'm sure, I can assure you, they will love it, and they will be demanding you to give you some more opportunity to become a partner parent.
That is excellent advice. I think both moms and dads in the audience have a lot to take away from what you just said. I personally would reflect on my way of parenting and see how involved my husband is in the parenting aspect as well. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Piara. Anjali, next question is for you. As we are aware, a family unit doesn't always look the same. Children may be cared for by their biological parents, adoptive parents, guardians, or other variation of caregivers, which profoundly impacts a child's psyche. Anjali, what in your capacity as a daycare owner, you probably observed the implications of different family dynamics. What advice would you give parents and guardians regarding the importance of supporting their children regardless of those family dynamics? I think you're on mute, Anjali.
Yeah. Yeah, Anjali is muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Anjali.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So what I was saying was, we start influencing a child's thoughts even before they're born. Whatever the emotions that mother is experiencing will be the same emotions the child would experience. Also, more than anything, what we as parents need to understand is it was our choice to bring a child to this world. This choice comes with a bigger responsibility in terms of a child's upbringing. This is why I personally believe children should be a priority when making family decisions. Uh, just like Dr. Piara said, I also believe that role of a mother and a role of a father is equally important in a child's life. Psychologically, child's attachment to mother and father are different. For example, if a child is hungry or sick, they might need the mother by their side. Whereas if they want to just have a wash or go for a walk, they might prefer to do that with their father. Um, so, but for a child's upbringing, both these are essential. Hence, I feel raising a child is best done when you're a team. It doesn't matter whether you're the biological parents or the adoptive parents. Uh, it doesn't matter as long as you play that role in that child's life. Having said that, we see a lot of couples choosing their own paths due to differences and marital concerns or challenges. Even if we do that, if that is the only option, what we need to understand is we should not deprive the child of getting that affection and that relationship with the other party. Because what I've seen through experience is sometimes when the father has been in a child's life or a mother has been in a child's life, and suddenly when they go missing or when they are no longer in the picture, it has a bigger impact on the child, especially when they are really young, when they really don't know to express their feelings. Uh, it comes out in different ways. Uh, why I say that is why I say that you need to really expose the child to the other party, even if your relationship is not the best. Why I say that is yes, a single parent, you will help your child achieve the milestones. But however, for the child, having both parents in that time will be emotionally more fulfilling. Um, if you look at the last 2 or 3 decades in the society, individualism is promoted and made popular. Uh, this is one reason I see today why, as to a lot of people make decisions to go on their own paths and really not take time and effort to think, okay, how would this impact on my child? However, also I would like to say the research shows that on an average, a child who is brought up in that secure environment of a family achieves way more than a child who has seen their parents getting separated. So, having said that, I wouldn't deny the fact that there are amazing single parents who do wonders in bringing up their kids too. I'm sure they are being responsive parents. So, yeah, I believe it is important that we as parents make decisions in favor of children, regardless of family dynamics. What they really need as a human being is the love and affection and guidance from whoever who's really looking after them. So if you give that, you'll, I think that's really good.
Thank you, Anjali. I think there's the common theme of love and affection being the center of parenting. And you're quite right in the fact that, you know, regardless of our family dynamics, the children, if they don't feel that void of love and attention, regardless how many people are involved and who those people are involved in the child's life, they do have a brighter future. So thank you for giving us, I know these questions are very broad, and all of you have done such a great job in condensing it to like 10 minutes or less for our audience. But since I have you online right now, I want to kind of touch on those videos that you do, Anjali. You do it on positive parenting, and some of them talk about habits that parents have or things that they do out of convenience that may leave a negative impact on the child, such as screen time and eating habits. Would you elaborate on some of that for us, please?
Okay, I will take the conversation on with what you just mentioned itself. So when you talk about screen time, I think what happens is nowadays, from the day that the child starts solid, because they've seen around when kids eat, they look at the phone.
Anjali, I don't want to interrupt you, but you sound distant. It's very faint. No, I can't hear you now.
Visakha.
A little better. Can you speak up a little bit? And maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So what I was saying was I'll start the conversation. It's echoing, sorry. From what you just said about screen time and healthy habits. So when you look at screen time, what happens is what I've noticed is a lot of parents know it's easy to feed a child if you give a cartoon on YouTube or put on a movie or something. Because what it does is it completely distracts the child to what he or she's watching and not really know what goes inside their mouth. So because of that, the feeding time really reduces and it helps the parents to manage the time. So, but I wouldn't say that's the best way to do it, simply because if they start it at a very early age, like 6 months when they start solid, what happens is unknowingly, what it does is it creates speech delays, simply because the child doesn't know to have a conversation because it's always been one way. And they get used to just listening and not really responding. And I personally have experienced a lot of kids who have gone through that and really, the parents are really worried after that, more than the child, because the child is not talking. Also, another thing that does through screen time is it really deprives of expressing your emotions. But you see, say for example, if the child is watching a lot of superhero cartoons or things that he or she sees as fighting or jumping around, because he can't.
Chirangi?
Hello.
Yes.
Because he can't really respond, he basically hold on to all these emotions while watching the cartoon. And then when the child goes out to the real world, he tries to, put it out, all these
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Responses. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm having some feedback from someone else.
That there are calls saying that we can't be heard.
Oh, I'm able to hear Anjali. It's faint, but Anjali, would you mind holding the mic up to your mouth? See if that.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
There is there's a vibration.
Guess we are experiencing some technical difficulty. Let's try to continue and see if we can fix it while we're at it. Thank you, Dr. Piara.
Yeah. So what I was saying is the child will try to express their emotions outside in the world what they see on the screen. So then unknowingly, the parent tries to label the child as being naughty or something and never listening. But what he's trying to actually do is put out that energy and that was saved in him while watching the TV. Sorry, there is an echo. Once again, sorry. Yeah, so these are some of the impacts of screen time. And if you refer to the eating habits, I would like to say from the very beginning, if you expose the child to healthy food, like eating veggies and fruits and all the good things, uh, he or she will continue to eat that. There is nothing called they don't like healthy food. If you make it interesting for them, they will eat it. But if you, for out of convenience, if you think giving them fast food is easy, they would eat. If they get the taste of it, it will be very difficult for you to get back to the healthy routine. And also another thing is, but when always don't just because the child avoids the food, you shouldn't be giving it because I did that mistake as well when my child was small. I used to make pasta and he used to refuse. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe I need to make something else. Then I cook something else. But then I realized one day he eats, one day he doesn't. So why not I'll ask the option first and then really make what he wants so that it will really help him also have that independency to choose what he wants, not that I'm just asking him to eat whatever that is there. So,
Thank you, Anjali. That was some good advice. I think considering that you get to observe most of the children at infancy and toddler age coming into school and having certain impacts because of those convenient habits that as parents we tend to do. I think it's a good eye opener for us to focus a little bit more on those habits and try to adjust them to be more have a more positive impact than a negative one on the kids. Thank you. Let's go ahead and ask Dilmini the next question. So Dilmini, during the earlier conversation, you mentioned a non-traditional approach to parenting. Can you elaborate on your unique parenting style and how it has helped you balance parenting while navigating a demanding career?
Well, you're putting me in trouble, Lucky. I have three professionals in the role right now.
Well, this is all about us sharing our opinions and our experiences. So I think you're in a safe environment to share your opinion.
Of course, of course. Actually, before I go there, I'm just going to touch on one thing that Anjali was saying on this whole, parenting, single parenting. 2 points. One is that I was brought up by a single parent, and I've never missed the role of a father because of the dual role that my mother played. And it's so important. I think that Dr. Priya touched on it, that, it is that positive parenting. I'm not sure what word it was, but the type of parenting that allows the single parent really to talk.
Responsive parenting.
Responsive parenting that allows, a single parent to really encompass all roles that a child needs to grow up with that safe, trusted environment. And the second point, I'd like to take a step back and say, do any of you know a fairy tale story that speaks well of a stepmother? And it's a very strong note, right? Because recently too, my little ones in the middle of a dinner conversation said, well, hold on, Amma, how come you're not a bad person? You're supposed to be really bad. I'm like, why? because you're supposed to dump some kid in in the middle of a forest and forget about them because you're a stepmother, right? And I think we're not going to go anywhere until we change those fundamental beliefs that we put in a child's mind. So as much as, yes, it's important, families are changing, the way families are situated, structured are changing. But as long as you hold on to those fairy tales and you give that into your kid from the time they're small, they also start questioning, how come it's not bad? How come it's a good role? So anyway, it's kind of off topic, touching base on what you, what Anjali spoke of. Moving on to my style has been very severely influenced by my mother's style, which I am very blessed and thankful for. And of course, things that I have crafted along the way. And I'm very cognizant of the fact that just because it is a style that I believe in, it may not fit all. But what I can say is parenting is the one subject that I think you find the most amount of gurus for, right? Especially as soon as you become a parent. The moment you have your first child, I mean, think about how much of advice you get, how many perspectives or opinions of how you should feed your child, dress your child, walk with your child, you name it. And as much as it is amazing to have that balance of opinions coming your way, it is very, very important that each individual, as a mother, as a father, really grasp what parenting means to you, right? So I'm just going to touch base on probably 4 things that I love about my journey of parenting. And the first is, I believe that it is very important to be vulnerable with your children. And what I mean by vulnerable is to completely be open of the fact that you are not perfect and that you are learning and you're improving. So just to relate a story, we have this practice where in the night after we read a book and go to sleep, we talk of, what are we proud of what happened during the day? What aren't we not that proud of? What could we have done better? And then I give them the opportunity to pick one thing that they want me to change and one thing they want me to become better at as their mother. I mean, they go to town with it. They try their luck, giving me many, but it works, right? So, I mean, I remember the first time I still said, darling, Ammi's not perfect. I don't know everything. I'm figuring this out as much as you are. And you're the only one who can help me. You're the one person who can give me the best feedback. So let's talk this through, figure it out. I promise I will do everything I can to become better for you. And the one, the only way they reacted was, what? Like, you don't know everything? How come? You're an adult? You're supposed to know everything, right? And honestly, it hit me like a brick, because you're right. We adults assume that we know everything. And they think that because we act that way. So if you are able to take a step back and make them realize that, no, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. We're all learning. And become genuinely vulnerable and say, I'm sorry I messed up. This was wrong. And I do that, right? And I was like, you know what? I know I was wrong in the way I reacted. It was a hard day. I'm sorry. What can I do? How can I help? How can we become better? And I think the pinnacle of this for me was when Aki came along and said, Ammi, what can I do? How can I become better? Tell me one thing to change in the next month. I mean, she gave herself 1 month. She was a smart girl, but it worked and she did change. So for me, it is absolutely important to be vulnerable with your children. The second point is that I believe in treating them with respect and not just love. And for me, respect boils down to the way you speak to them, the communication, as well as, the level of patience that you have really dictates the level of respect that you can have for each other. In terms of communication, if we think about somebody asking us to do something, we always want a choice. We hate being told to do or act in a certain way when you don't have an alternate choice, right? So why do we assume that our kids are okay with not having a choice? And sometimes, even if it isn't an actual choice, you can make it sound like a choice. The end result would always steer them towards what you want done, because that is what's right for them. However, you can give them a choice. Hey, do you want to first eat this and then go out? Or do you want to take a break, not do anything, and then go out with me, right? It's about making them feel empowered, in my point of view, at least, to say, hey, I'm treating you like an equal. I am speaking to you, and hence I expect you to act with respect to me as well, right? In terms of patience, as I said, it's not easy, right? And it's often that I find, I mean, a few days ago when I was going out, I didn't have a maid. I was trying to get everything ready. My husband had left to office already. We live alone. We don't have parents living in. So I had the two of them dressed, kept them out. I was wanting to get the car out. And then Nangi had, made this whole soap concoction, which she thought was fabulous for her to go riding on. And so she was spilling all the soap water outside, right? And I had a webinar to go join. And I was really late. And at that moment, if she did the same thing with the soap water when I was home and I wasn't rushing out, I would not get angry. But because she did it at a time that my life didn't allow for her to have that exposure and experience, it made me angry. So really, it's about every time you lose patience, every time you feel like you're getting angry, to understand, is that because of their behavior genuinely, or is it because of your state of mind at that point that you're about to lose patience? Now, all this becomes Vadibana, right? Because at times, as I said, my lorry drivers test my patience enough before I come home. So by the time I come, I'm roast. And there are the moments that I lose it, absolutely lose it. And I'm being very authentic and very real. You can say all these things, but all of us know, very true to our heart, as parents, we use the telephone when we feed them at times, because you know what, you need your sanity. And there are the moments that you have to get through life. So what I've done, and one thing that's worked for me, is I've asked for their help, saying, okay, I am going to lose patience, but when I do me a favor and come and hug me, right? Because what I've realized is, yes, I can be really angry and I'm about to scream at them. And Aki does this very well. Like, I'm genuinely about to lose my senses and scream at her. And then she just comes and hugs me, right? And I'm like, ah! And there's nothing that a hug can't heal. That's just, I mean, as parents, you know that, I know that. When your child hugs you, no matter what, you're not able to be that fierce, mean person anymore. So yes, I will correct her, but I will take a step back. And both of us know that something wrong has happened. We know that discipline is required. We know that it's right. But you do it with less aggression and you do it with more love, because a hug, for me at least, heals anything.
That's awesome. I have to admit that I have been in your shoes more often than not. And it's a good way to look at it. Like, what is your perspective going to be had the circumstances been different? How much emotion are you bringing into the situation? And is it really required? Is this something to do with something completely different in your life? Or is it actually that you're reacting to what the child is doing? So I appreciate the candid, Ilmini. That was very informative. And again, the parenting styles that each of us adhere to needs to suit us and our children. And just like we are unique, so are our children. And the same thing doesn't work for both or three or however many children that you have. And your second born kind of tells you that within the first couple of weeks. So thank you again. Let's move on to Dr. Asiri. So Asiri, so far we have focused mainly on the well-being and the development of children during this webinar. As parents, sometimes we forget to focus on our personal well-being. Dr. Asiri, what is your advice for parents about looking after our own health?
Yeah, actually, I think most of the things I was planning to say, I think Dilmini already said through her experience. I think she's sort of a living example for a healthy parent, I would say. So I would start to say by saying that when we talk about parenting, definitely we cannot forget the parents and their own health. So even though we want to focus on children because we want the best for them, but we always have to remember we cannot do the best for our children unless we are not healthy and unless we are not focusing on our physical as well as mental health. So you have to look after yourself, and that means looking after your relationships as well, your health, and also your well-being. So I would just sum up very few theoretical advices. I think you can match what I'm telling with what Dilmini has told. So it will. She has given the live examples as well. So one important aspect is that you have to understand this parenting is not a very easy job. It's a lot of demand. It's a demanding job, and both you and your partner are in this business together. So one most important thing is always talk to your partner. A very good communication helps both of you, and also setting realistic expectations and being understanding and forgiving each other can often make the difference between staying together and drifting apart. So it is very important that you continue a healthy relationship with your partner. It is one of the most important part of looking after your health. So I would start with that. And secondly, you have to make some time for yourself. Despite how busy you are, you have to have a me time somewhere in the day, maybe 12 o'clock, maybe midnight. I wouldn't mind, but you should have some time for yourself to do something that you always want to do, like maybe having a good strong cup of tea, or maybe just looking at a few teledramas or reading a book or something, but you should have that time for yourself. Otherwise, you will always be stressed up. And remember, never mind, don't worry about what others tell, just have your time, and it is very important to have that. And thirdly, there are a lot of working parents, working mothers, so it is very important to have this work-life balance. So sometimes I feel having going to the job is also beneficial rather than not working and staying at home, because you don't have a way of escaping. So since we are going to work, even though very much stressed with your kids, we get a chance to escape. During the COVID also, we got the chance to escape. So I think it's, in a way, it's an advantage. But what we have seen is many give up their jobs. But I would suggest, even though, like, sometimes I know under the current circumstances, if you don't have parents to hand over your kids and you don't have maids, you might have to give up your jobs. But even though you give up your jobs, always keep in touch with some of the exciting things that you used to do, like as educated people. Keep on doing some online courses or something, some little things, do some external things, because you can always come back. Your little kids are growing up, so one day they will grow up. So I'm at a stage where my kids prefer I'm going to the work rather than I'm staying at home. So there will be a time like that. So it's better that if you can save your career or something for that time. I have seen in many foreign countries, they take leave when they have kids, but then again they join the profession, and then even they do PhDs and all these wonderful things. So keep that touch. Don't lose it. It will help you towards the end. And also, I think most of us discussed here, after all, there are no perfect parents, right? There are no perfect parents. If at all, they don't have children, I would say. So you are not perfect. I'm not perfect. No one of us are perfect. So be kind to yourself. It's common to make mistakes, but always you can learn from your mistakes, as Dimini said. So parenting is a reflective process. And as she very correctly said, and which is something which I strongly believe, that your children should also see your mistakes, because that is natural human behavior. Children should see the failures, children should see the mistakes, and that helps them to become more empathetic as well. So it is very important, as very correctly Dhirmini said. I will again going back to her, because she explained the scenarios. So if you do something wrong, discuss with her, discuss with your kids, say that yeah, I have done a mistake, so it's okay, so you can do mistakes. So that will help you to reduce the guilt and keep your mental health at a very good level. So it's very easy in that way. And then I would say the other important thing is, if you are finding it very hard, it's very important to seek out for help, because there are a lot of help available at the moment. Even in Sri Lanka, we have a lot of mental health services in the country, and what we have seen is there's a very high prevalence of postpartum depression in the country. There are a lot of mothers suffering from depression and those kind of emotional problems, but who are not coming for help. So it is very important that there are very professional services available. So if you are having problems, go out and seek for help. So finally, I would say, as many speakers said today, the prime duty of the parents is to unconditionally love your children. That is your prime duty. So if you do that, you have done 90% of the job. So not to worry. So get relaxed and also enjoy parenting. Do not take it too hard thinking about the future of your kids and forgetting to enjoy the current moment, the present parenting experience. Thank you.
That was excellent, Asiri. So, moms and dads who joined in today, doctor's orders, you have to have me time. So, make sure that you put that into your daily routine and have some time to yourselves. That is very important, like Dr. Asiri pointed out. And it's amazing that all of our panelists have a common theme: love your children, be responsive to them, and it does. One person came in here saying that I don't know if my way of parenting is the way that everybody needs to do their parenting. I don't know these professionals agree with me. And I would say that this panel had just gone to show that parenting is something that we are all learning as we do it. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And we have our mistakes that we make, own up to it, make sure that our children see us owning up to it. And I think for personally, I would be working on getting more responses, more feedback from my children about my parenting ways. So having said all of that, I have one last question for all four of you. It's about schools reopening. I know that most of us have gotten used to the idea of children staying at home. Children have gotten used to the idea of staying at home. And now with the schools starting to reopen, we hope, fingers crossed, what are ways that we as parents can prepare and also prepare our children to return to school? Let's start with you, Anjali.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so with the schools reopening, I think I'm sure if the child is uh, above 4 or 5 years, they would love that uh, news to hear because they're going to meet their friends physically and be in the presence with their children, with their friends again. So what we need to tell them is because they are in an age that they could understand uh, what why it was closed and why is it reopening now and how they need to behave for their own safety. If we explain few things like why they need to wear the mask and why they need to wash hands and all that, if we teach them in their how can I say their a way that they would understand, uh, they would be okay in following all these things if they're important, if they feel understand and feel it's important. Why I say that is even the uh, preschool age kids, they really do understand uh, what this COVID is right now because we talk about it uh, to them and tell them why we need to do all these things and we don't want any of your uh, family family members to any of your family members to fall sick, and it's for the safety of everyone you love around. So when that is the case, I think it, I'm sure all our kids are looking forward to it because that's a time that they really get to mingle with their friends and really enjoy the physical learning again because that experience is completely different to online learning where you really get to interact with the teacher and really uh, be present in what they would really learn also.
Thank you, Anjali. I think that's good advice, especially to parents with really young kids. Some of them might have not even experienced going to school if the pandemic happened that year that they were supposed to go to school. So it's good advice to start training them on the safety measures of washing hands, and if the masks are required, how to wear the mask, so that by the time they get to school, they will already be prepared, and it'll make it much easier for the teachers as well as the parents not to have to deal with all of that while the schools reopen. Thank you. Dr. Piara, would you like to add some comments regarding school starting? Dr. Piara, are you still with us? Oh, we can't hear you, Dr. Piara. Yes.
Can you hear now? Yeah. Okay. Sorry,
Yes.
my mic was muted. So I think
Okay.
probably Anjali has given a better, like a description of than a doctor of what the child should be doing when they're going to school, and there's nothing much for me to tell you there. But just just to think of another aspect, I think often most of the children did miss going to school, but I think there was a lot of other stuff happening as well. So if I get personal, I have a huge extended family household with 3 or 4 houses joined together with extended family, 3 dogs. So lots of unstructured time. Every day at morning where the dog is lying on the bed, although we have preached until I do, and wake up in the morning as late as they like. So lots of unstructured time playing with the friends without any problems. So now I think they have to get prepared to go back to a more strict routine, and that might be the case in some children. So maybe the thing we might have to do is back to that routine even before they actually start school, so that they are physically prepared to go there and actually start working and adhere to their timetables and schedules and stuff.
Thank you, Dr. Piara. Definitely a structured schedule applied early before the school starts would be a good idea. I think we anyway do that as parents when we have holidays and the children are getting ready to come back to school. We kind of get them to start waking up early and getting used to the idea of being up during the day and activities that are more oriented towards reading and maybe some mathematics or things like that to get them involved in the learning process again. Well, thank you again. Dilmini, what I see that you are parenting right now.
Sorry, yes.
So what kind of tips will you be doing during this time to get ready for the schools to reopen?
I think the biggest thing that would hit me is waking them up early, because they've all gotten used to having, the fun time of being able to wake up just 15 minutes before class, getting ready and just jumping on that Zoom call. Can you give me 1 minute, please? 1 minute, okay? And the other one is that, it is such an easy lifestyle for us, even though it's hard to manage both. It is not as demanding as it is to really figure out when you're working mother, dropping them, picking them up, taking them for classes. The physical aspect of it has a huge toll on you. And I mean, I'm cognizant of the fact that grandmothers take a lot of this hit for us, or daycare centers where they go pick them up. But it is still a challenge for us to get back. And I think the biggest thing for me is the emotional shift that they go through, because for this whole year, they've not been with the kids their age, right? I mean, when they have siblings, yes, there's a certain level to which they kind of feed off each other and they play with the neighbors, and that's brilliant. But the whole concept of being with 30 other kids your age and being able to manage what that was, it's a bit different to what it is managing your sibling, right? So I think that is what I want to kind of get them used to, again, saying, hey, it's fun, because the fun aspect of school isn't there, especially with the little one, because it's just, nursery, 2 months of nursery that she's ever gone to. So it's just, it's fresh kind of understanding what school is. But Yeah, there's negatives and positives both, but there's nothing we can't really deal with, right? So we take it as it comes.
Awesome. Yes, and all the best in the waking up schedule, because I know that's usually the most challenging part with any kids.
Absolutely.
Yes. Dr. Asiri, what can you offer for us as a parent and as well as a medical professional, things to focus on before schools get started back on?
Yeah, actually, I think most kids are eagerly waiting for the schools to reopen. That's the situation at the moment in the country. Except the Western Province, all the other schools have already like commenced, so they are going to school. So our kids in the Western Province, so they are waiting. And I would say the first thing is that there are, they had the routine earlier, 1 year back, and now when they go again, there are changes due to the pandemic. They have to adhere to certain new rules. So it is very important that they are very much aware of the rules, and we discuss as parents about these rules and why these rules are there and what are the importance and all these aspects. So they are empowered to adhere to that specific rules. So that is one thing very important. And also I would like to highlight that now this COVID pandemic, we all are in it. I mean, the globally, and all the parents as well as the kids are also part of it. So they also have a responsibility and they also have a voice for themselves. So like they are not like just passive recipients of the instructions. So they also have, over the past 1 year, they have read about it, they know about it. So ask them what do you think, how can you be safe, what are the new things, what are the creative ways you can do in schools, how you can be with your friends and have a happy time while protecting yourselves. Get them into the discussions. Don't think that kids are only recipients of instructions. They can create their own way of thinking. Make them part of this job. It is their job to go to school, learn, be safe and stay safe. So I think we have to get our kids to do their own thing. So we are going into the new world, so they have to start doing their things. So I think that would be my advice for them.
Perfect. I think that's a good way to wrap up this question about returning back to school. That's all good advice. Thank you, everyone, for contributing towards that question. I know that was a surprise one for everyone. We had not earlier discussed on that question, but I thought it was very timely. So while there has been so much discussion about parenting, sadly, our time has come to an end. So I would like to take this time to offer my heartfelt thanks to all the panelists for taking the time off their busy schedules to join in the discussion and for sharing their thoughts regarding parenting and for their candor. Thank you to all the members of the VVOGA for continuing to host community outreach activities such as this webinar. We really appreciate having the opportunity to learn and grow during this time. Even though we've had some technical difficulties, I think we did an excellent job of communicating our perspective on parenting to the audience. And we thank you all for joining us today and bearing with all the technical difficulty. And that concludes our webinar on parenting. I hope that the information that you heard from us today and we discussed will support you on your parenting journey. So from one parent to another, I say safe travels, Subagamang. And Istuti and thank you to our sponsors, which you will hear a message from as we part ways. Thank you again and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
අයියලා ඇවිල්ලා. හොඳ නෑ.
ඊට පස්සේ මම
මෙයාට හොඳ නෑ.
ඩයබිටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට විශේෂයි. විටමින් කනිජ සහ තන්තු සමගින් නිසි පෝෂණයක් ලබා දෙයි.
මේ තමයි වාට හොඳ දේ.
අඩු ග්ලයිසමික් දර්ශකයක් සහිත සමබර පෝෂණීය ඩයබිටිසෝල්.
සිය සීයා මාරයි.
සීයාගේ පුතත් මාරයි.